Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. The Division 2 being played on a 9-year-old computer, but not a 9-year-old video card. And not on Windows 10 or 11, but rather Windows 7 in 2023. If you can keep up with all of that, congratulations, have a cookie. This is a fun game being played at 1440p ultra detail, and I have entirely too many hours being played in it. I know it's not a brand new game. It's about 4 years old at this point, having come out in the spring of 2019. Thank you very much to the correction in the previous Division 2 video when I said 2018. It was announced in 2018. I don't remember if it was originally supposed to come out in 2018, but that's what I remember, and actually, no, I went and looked it up, and it was spring of 2019. And since I'm recording this in the spring of 2023, it does, in fact, make the game almost exactly 4 years old. This is an i7-4790K. It is one of the best values Intel has released in quite some time. It lasted a very long time, but it had a lot of improvements and a lot of tweaks and updates that the second and third generation chips didn't have, and most certainly the first generation did not. Now, that's not to disparage an i7-2600K. That also was an awesome CPU. However, the Sandy Bridge, and to some lesser extent the Ivy Bridge chips, the third generation, were lacking some instructions that Haswell brought to the table. In many regards, Haswell is the oldest CPU I would personally want to use for general purpose computing today, simply because it has a number of updates that the first couple of generations are missing. In fact, this system actually has an M.2 slot. Yes, there were Z97 motherboards with an M.2 slot, which is pretty cool, and I've got a NVMe SSD installed, and it's running at least some of these games. I also have a SATA SSD for extra capacity, but it is pretty cool that a system from 2014 does in fact have an M.2 slot. Only 10 gigabit per second instead of the proper 32 gigabit per second, but that doesn't really matter. It's an i7-4790K. The RTX 2080 Ti has 11 gigabytes of VRAM. It definitely was launched in the fall of 2018, and so it is about 4 years newer than the CPU, but it is still over 4 years old from today. Now, this was the premium top-tier $1,000 graphics card in 2018. So yes, it is absolutely 100% totally useful in 2023. This video is not remotely meant to answer the question, can you use an RTX 2080 Ti to play games at 1440p, even at ultra detail? Sure, just maybe not every game. Cyberpunk with ray tracing on at ultra detail actually will struggle on this card at 1440p. It'll do it. And at standard 1440p, you can average 60 frames per second with DLSS turned on. However, 1440p ultra-wide tends to drop down into the 45-ish range. How do I know? I tried it. I actually, on my home machine, I have an ultra-wide monitor, and I upgraded from the 2070 Super to the 3070, and the 3070 is basically a 2080 Ti, and then finally upgraded to a 3090 because even that wasn't cutting the mustard. Cyberpunk is a challenging game, what can I say? But this video is not about Cyberpunk. Spoiler alert, I do have a benchmark of Cyberpunk. However, I did have to upgrade this machine to Windows 11 because it would not run on Windows 7 because, lo and behold, Windows 7 doesn't have DirectX 12, and that's a problem. Perhaps more than any other reason, Windows 7 is not surviving the way Windows XP did because DirectX 12 has absolutely become a hard requirement for a lot of recent games. And so Windows 7 was discontinued a couple years ago, although extended support was out there and there's still some patches. Microsoft kept updating it. But truly, honestly, real, honest-to-goodness support ended January of this year, 2023, which is really technically 3 years after the official retirement date, but Microsoft has continued to release patches and updates to it, which some have been officially made, some you have to get on a long-term support program, but it truly is dead now. And in fact, Windows 8 is dead now as well, and so even Steam is now ending Windows 7 and Windows 8 support. It's over. Because you can't play games like Cyberpunk on Windows 7. It doesn't have DirectX 12, and DirectX 12 is required for all the new shinies. That's kind of a reverse situation to what happened with DirectX 9 and DirectX 10. Windows Vista and Windows 7 brought out DirectX 10. It wasn't supported on Windows XP, but it took a long time for games to really start requiring that. DirectX 10 had a few games, and it was kind of a feature checkbox for some. But it wasn't really until DirectX 11 took over, Windows 7 came out, and everybody started upgrading. Windows XP was gone a long time before you absolutely positively could not run new games on it. Now, well, I guess technically Windows 10 did come out in 2015, so I probably should have thought of that before I said everything, because, yeah, I guess it's been about that long. But unlike Windows XP, Windows 7 wasn't as necessary. I know some people hate the spyware of Windows 10. I understand. Your computer, your OS, you should be able to run it the way you want. You don't want a Microsoft account? You don't want spyware running? You don't want forced updates? It's your computer. You should be able to do it the way you want. So, well, Microsoft's response is, screw you for wanting choice. Today's video was brought to you by eWin Racing, the best source for gaming chairs and desks for those long gaming sessions. We have a playlist of our eWin chair and desk videos linked in the video description below. Save 30% off of everything using the discount code TechDeals. More details at the end of the video. Coming back to the performance you're watching, this is not heavy combat. We're running down the street, and I gotta say, this is gorgeous. I've always found the Division games to be quite attractive. The scenery, the bushes, the trees, the leaves, the debris on the ground, the trash. The fact that you can run around in this amazing recreation of a city, and it looks decent. I mean, for sure, it's not realistic. There's a number of faults with it, but it's really good considering what just 5 years ago this really would have looked like. But this isn't heavy combat. I'm going to jump cut here in a second to heavy combat. But I would like you all to notice that the RTX 2080 Ti is not at 100% usage. Let me say that one more time. The RTX 2080 Ti is being CPU bottlenecked by an i7-4790K. And this is at 1440p ultra detail. Every detail is cranked to the max. Now, some of you will say, well, sure, it's an older CPU. Of course it's bottlenecked. But at the same time, I get comment after comment after comment from people who say, come on, man, your CPU doesn't matter that much. It's all, put your money in your graphics card. Why are you spending so much on your CPU? Well, because your CPU matters. What are you talking about? When I see a benchmark chart, the differences between the CPUs aren't that big. Yeah, there's more to gaming and computing than benchmark charts. My biggest complaint with benchmark charts, and the reason I am making these videos, is so you can see real gameplay, real action, real-time performance numbers, and you can look at what percentage of the system is being used. You can see the frame time graph, which is a digital representation of the smoothness, the amount of milliseconds between each frame, and whether they are smooth and steady, or whether there's a bunch of jumping. This is important because just because a game averages 100 frames per second does not mean it's an enjoyable experience. If there's stutters and lags, if there's input lag, it's terrible. Now, there's no input lag here, not major, I mean, maybe a little bit, but it was totally fine. It was absolutely playable. I had no issues whatsoever. It's not super smooth. I would not want to go into the dark zone. I would not want to do multiplayer content on this machine. I mean, you could, but we're kind of pushing it as it is. We are using 60 to 75% of the CPU. It actually goes above 80% at times. It is important to remember, and I keep saying it, and almost every video I say it, at least one person in the comment section goes, wait, what? What do you mean? The CPU percentage does not mean what a lot of people think it means. Allow me to clarify. Now, if you already know this, then fair enough. The number of threads is divided into 100%, and the percentage usage is basically the number of threads. A 4-core, 4-thread chip is 25% usage is one full thread. Now, sometimes it'll divide between the threads because it gets moved around. Windows core shifts and thread shifts. So as additional tasks take over and new threads are started, they hop between the cores. So sometimes you'll actually see the different cores used at a lower percentage because it's core hopping. That's Windows redistributing the load and using the prefetch algorithm on the next core. With 8 threads, because the i7-4790K has hyperthreading, each thread is 12.5% usage. It is almost impossible to get to 100% usage on a hyper-threaded or SMT in AMD's case CPU because most games do not make effective use of hyperthreads. Well, then why do we have hyperthreading? because in general, hyperthreading doesn't hurt, and what hyperthreading does is allow multitasking to be smoother. It allows each core to have a second prefetcher to load the next thing that's running and basically swap between two threads. It does improve system responsiveness. Think of it this way. Your cores give you your average frame rate. Your threads give you your 1% low. Without the hyperthreading, the 1% low here would not be at 50 frames per second, but the average would still be pretty close to the 85. What's interesting is this battle you're looking at right here goes on for quite some time. I kind of walked into a den of two different groups of enemies, and there's been no cuts so far. I'd like to point out the fact that since I showed you the beginning of this, there have been no jump cuts. My memory was this was further along. I thought I was going to have to jump cut to this battle, but since we walked into it while I was talking, because I do that, forgive me, we're just here in this battle. I didn't time it, and I'm not going to time it because I'm going to let you guys have fun doing that and put that down in the comment section below. From the time I walked up to this group of enemies to that red bus to the end of this battle, I'm kind of proud of that dodge. How long did this battle take? It was intense. It's like, wow. I imagine, you watch movies and you see exciting action scenes in movies and you don't really think about how long combat is. But I would guess, and I have never been in real combat, I've never been in a war zone, so I don't know. But if any of you have served, thank you for your service. Please leave a comment down below. If any of you have served in Iraq, Afghanistan, or anywhere else, and you have actual combat experience, maybe you're an older veteran, you served in Vietnam, how long do firefights usually last? Because my impression from the movies is you have these ridiculous shootouts that last forever with everybody spraying bullets every which direction. Of course, we're spraying bullets here. It's a video game. This is not real life. But I have a funny feeling that most firefights are either over really quick or it's a really bad day. And I say that guessing because I don't really know. It's one side very quickly overruns the other or everybody's having a pretty awful day. Oh, no, I'm on fire. Yikes, put it out. Thankfully, there's a V key. Am I going to remember? No! Oh. Wow, all my armor's gone. My health is gone. Heal! Heal! Come on, heal! No, we're burning. Oh, we're almost dead. We're almost dead. We're almost dead. We're almost dead. Hit the heal key. You can hit. There you go. Hold V. Jeez, it took you long enough, Tech. Don't you know how to video game? Hey, look at that. Instant health and armor. We need to develop something like that to give it to our soldiers in the battlefield. Imagine you could be lying there dying, you got hit by a grenade, you're bleeding out, you're holding your guts in your hand, and you just reach down and you push the V key and suddenly, yeah, you're fine. You're okay. Get back into it. That'd be pretty cool. Or, we could just skip the whole thing and not have real wars in general. How cool would it be if countries that wanted to go to war with each other instead had online video game tournaments and the winners of the tournaments determined the outcome of the conflict? So, okay, I am so sorry. Forget the politics for a minute. Middle East peace. The Israelis and the Palestinians cannot figure their crap out. Fine. Both sides put forth their best esports gamers. We have a year-long awesome elimination tournament. Each side can put forth 1,000 of their best esports players. They get to spend 6 months training, getting ready for this, and then we have an elimination tournament where you start with 1,000 and you whittle it down to 500 on each side, then 250, then 125, then 60, then 30. Then we have a final battle royale with the last 15 players on each side, and whichever side wins in the video game, well, they get to win the war and nobody gets shot and we don't have to build all these bombs. In fact, if you took all the money that we spent on the tanks and the bombs and the missiles, yes, I know the military-industrial complex, but if you took all that money, you could probably just let everybody have what they want because there'd be so much money left over. Okay, enough of that. That's delving too far into the real world, which you guys didn't come here for. You just want to see some fun gaming benchmarks. But it just does annoy me as I get older. For those of you who don't know, I'm 47 years old. I just look at it all and it just seems like such a waste. In any case, this battle is still going on, and I'm trying to find things to say. Let's talk about VRAM. 1440p Ultra, 6.7 gigabytes of VRAM. 8 gigabytes is still enough, but again, this is a 2019 game. New games, you're definitely going to want more VRAM, but it does go to show that if you had bought a 11 gigabyte VRAM card back in the day, it still has a lot of legs in it. If you'd bought the 2070 or 2080 with 8 gigabytes, yeah, it still works, but 8 gigabytes is quickly not being enough. Last of Us, Part 1, looking at you. 8 gigabytes is very quickly no longer being enough. As far as the main system RAM usage, we're using 14.3 gigabytes of RAM, and I will reinforce the point. We are running on a clean test bench. This is a clean system. There is nothing else running on it. It is a fresh install of Windows. It's Windows 7, in fact, not even Windows 10. And we're using almost, well, a little over 14 gigabytes of RAM. 16 gigabytes of RAM is silly, please. At the moment I'm recording this, you can buy 16 gigabytes of RAM on Newegg, 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 for $35. No joke. If you have 16 gigs of RAM in your existing system and you have a DDR4 system, almost anything from the past 10 years, well, not quite 10 years, I guess 2023 didn't use DDR4, from the past 8 years that uses DDR4, drop another 16 gigs in for $35 and be done with it already. It improves your 1% lows, it improves multitasking performance, and it is a super cheap upgrade. In any case, our frame rate's fine. We're at 84 frames per second average. Oh no, enemy leader detected. Well, thankfully I brought unlimited ammunition. I think I'm carrying about 300 pounds of bullets. What do I have? I think I've got 1,000 rounds of ammo for my for my machine gun, which I did the math once and I cannot remember off the top of my head what that weighs, but I think it weighs as much as I do. 1,000 rounds of ammo is extremely heavy in 10 100 round belts. That is not, in fact, I'm down to, 357 rounds plus the 72 on the belt. And of course, reloading in real life, you don't just relink them that quickly. But hey, it's a video game. Real life would be boring because that involves death. Imagine if you died in a video game and somebody came to your house and, okay, let's not go there. So the performance is nice. The graphics card's not being fully utilized. Oh, the last point I want to make. The i7-4790K at stock runs at 4.0 gigahertz. I do have multi-core enhancement turned on. In this particular case, they didn't call it MCE. That term didn't come out until later, but it's effectively what it is. I have a Asus Z95 Pro Wi-Fi board. I think it's a Wi-Fi board. I don't remember. Anyway, it's an Asus Z95, and when you turn on XMP, the question pops up that says, do you want to turn on the all-core enhancement, is what it calls it. I think that's what it says it. In any case, what it essentially does is it runs the CPU at the all-core turbo, which is the max, at the single-core turbo, but with all the cores. The 4790K is 4.4 gigahertz max turbo advertised, but it's really 4.0 stock out of the box. eWin Racing has a wide selection of chairs to fit all shapes and sizes of gamers, ranging from petite to cuddly. They have something for every type of gamer. Not just sizes, but colors and material options as well, including red, blue, purple, pink, orange, and more, plus cloth and leather choices. We have over half a dozen chair and desk videos in a playlist down in the video description below. We also have a very special offer just for Tech Deals viewers. Save 30% off of everything using discount code TechDeals using our link in the video description. We have used eWin gaming chairs for 3 years in our office, sitting on them for up to 8-hour marathon live streams. They are very comfortable, and we are happy to work with eWin to bring you this special discount and recommend eWin for all of your gaming chair and desk needs. But I have a liquid cooler on this. It runs absolutely fine. You can see here we're at 60 degrees Celsius. And it's not even a big liquid cooler. It's a Corsair H90 140 millimeter. Yes, single fan 140. Very rare. They don't make them anymore. Haven't made them for a long time. But that's the cooler on there. And as a bonus point, I have not replaced the thermal paste since it was installed. It has been a very long time. And I'm willing to bet that if I replace the thermal paste on that, because that was built in 2015, so that thermal paste is 8 years old. It probably is very much due for replacement, and it would probably take 10 degrees off of the CPU, but 60 is fine, so I haven't. Thank you all so much for everybody who has watched to this point. 2 gold stars for all of you. This was actually uncut, and there's much more to this recording, but you guys get the point. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know how long that battle was from when I got to the red bus. I didn't count it, so I'm going to let you guys do it and post it down in the comments below. I appreciate it. There will be a link to a playlist with all of these down below. I actually benchmarked a truly stupid number of games on the 4790K. There are, spoiler alert, there are games that do run like absolute garbage on it. Not everything runs like this. Newer games are going to start to struggle. 4 cores really is at the end of its life for new titles. But there are about a bajillion games that look awesome, that are fun to play, that will run just fine on this. And if you're watching this and you have an i7-4790K and money is tight and you don't want to upgrade, get a RTX 4060 or 3070 or 2080 and you will be just fine at 1440p on your machine, at least if you run games that came out at least within the era that this was appropriate. Maybe up to about 2020. I mean, Cyberpunk 2077 runs on this. It's not perfect, but it does. But some of the newer titles that came out in the past year don't. Thank you so much for watching. I will see all of you next time.